Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to ask all the panelists of this next roundtable to come and join me on stage, and we are going to start in 2 minutes. So all the panelists for this next roundtable to come and join me on stage, please. Thank you. How are you?
Perfect.
Good, good.
I think we have here German, French.
Oh, it doesn't matter. The order is really. And we are waiting for Monsieur François Jacques.
This is linked to the seat.
Monsieur François Jacques. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Right on time. Wow. All right. Let's open our first Orbitox roundtable this afternoon, a new chapter for French-German cooperation in space. I won't be long for the introduction. In this session, we will, of course, focus on the enhancement of the Franco-German space cooperation by developing breakthrough technologies for the benefit of Europe. Just a quick word to tell you, we're going to have a 30-minute discussion, then we'll take questions from the audience, so you can expect to have your questions answered. And then there will be, following the session, both heads of the French and German agency will sign a cooperation agreement focusing on disruptive technologies that will benefit Europe. So let me introduce our speakers this afternoon, Monsieur François Jacques, CEO of CNES, the French Space Agency. Next to him, Walter Pelzer, Director General of the German Space Agency at DLR. Next to you, Monsieur Alain Fauré, member of the GIFAS board and CEO of Airbus Defence and Space. And next to me is Mr. Marco Fuchs, Vice President of BDLI, the German Space Industry Association, and CEO of OHB. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for accepting our invitation. I want to start with you, Monsieur François Jacques, please. France and Germany are the top two European partners in the space sector. They're leading contributors to ESA and key drivers within the European Union. So could you tell us, Monsieur Jacques, why open a new chapter in space cooperation between our two countries and agencies now?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. Let's maybe start where we stand now, because that's I think, useful to remind us of what is currently the French-German cooperation. We have been long-standing partners for many years. We are cooperating on a broad range of issues, ranging from, let's say, Earth observation to exploration, also launches and so on. And I must say that we have basically three frames of cooperation. One is the bilateral one, and we were just reminded a few minutes ago with Walter that we are working closely, DLR and CNES. We are also working in the frame of ESA, where we are representing 40% of, let's say, of the overall subscription. And we are also working in the frame of EU, because basically there are some flagship projects in EU, be it Galileo for the positioning, be it Copernicus and so on, where we're working closely. So that's a strong basis. Why do we want to go a step further? Just because if you're looking at the current world, we all realize now, I think, that we couldn't work without space. I think space was a nice thing maybe in the 60s and 70s. Now it's something absolutely crucial for daily life. The second point is sufficient to look at the geopolitics of what is happening in Europe, in Ukraine, in the States, and so on, to see that if we do not seize the opportunity to enhance our cooperation and to work maybe even more efficiently together, we will fall behind. So our intent, and I think that's something shared between both organizations, is to go a step further, to work even more closely together. That's just why we intend to sign something today in terms of being able to pinpoint what are the enabling, critical, or generic technologies we need for space. So we think we are at the crossroad. That's the proper moment to build on the sound basis. And if we've got a strong German-French partnership, we think we will get a strong Europe, basically.
So precisely, how do you intend to engage the industry in this critical and disruptive technology initiatives between the two agencies of yours?
I think that's an important point because most of the time when you're speaking of that, you're speaking about rivalry between the countries. And first what we can say is that we have a French-German industry. Airbus is a case in point, but we also have industry working for both countries, and we also have, for instance, newcomers, startups. I think of the exploration company being with a truly German-French DNA, I would say. That's one point. The second point is that clearly we can't achieve things without industry. And now the tricky issue is to organize this relation between the agency and the industry. We have to lead forward in terms of innovation, in terms of making the link between research community, technological communities, and the industry. And I think if we are able to do that, that is to have some convergence between industry, between technological and scientific community, and the agencies in charge of space, then it will be fruitful for all countries and all companies. And that's clearly what we have to achieve.
And we will, of course, hear the voice of the industry through the voice of Monsieur Fauré and Monsieur Fuchs in a moment. But Mr. Walter Pelzer, the geopolitical situation seems to be more challenging than ever in Europe. So could you tell us what instrument do we have at our disposal in our hands to grab this also as a chance in the space domain, particularly when it comes to the Franco-German relations?
Yeah, let's start with the Franco-German relation and why now is the right time.
Stick the mic to your chin. Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
Why now is the right moment to actually start or to boost another level of the cooperation. The cooperation between on agency level is excellent. It's very good. We have a lot of projects. But we have a mismatch on political level, or we had a mismatch on political level. In France, space was already appreciated on very high political level, while it was in Germany sometimes kind of difficult to attract the appropriate partners for the ministers, for the president in France. And this changed. And with this change in appreciation of space as a topic, we have an absolutely new way actually how we can discuss the topic space. Right now, Philippe Baptiste is on the way to our new Minister for Space, Minister Baer. And they are going to talk about space. This is something which is kind of new, that they really meet each other to talk and to tackle this topic. Now to your question in regard what we have on hand, more or less everything, and especially the most important topics. First of all, we are used to work together. We are part of the European Union, so it's kind of in our DNA to work together, cross-border, to find compromises. This is a very important topic if we want to join forces to actually move out as not being always the follower, now sometimes to be also in the lead. And this is what I expect that Europe in space needs to work on, that we are in the lead. We have wonderful examples, for example, JUICE or Earth Explorer, where we are in the driver's seat, and NASA or JAXA, for example, follows. And this is what I think is, at least what I picture for Europe's space endeavors, that we are sometimes, not always, but sometimes in the lead. And we have everything available in Europe. Actually, we have a an excellent science base. We have top stuff. We have a very competitive industry. And when we are able to collect the budget necessary for the topics and find the right priorities, we are set up to actually really fill the gap if there's a gap necessary. But so from this point of view, I don't think that we have a big disadvantage, strategic disadvantage. We have a disadvantage in a clear picture what we want to do and in regard of the budget.
So we have everything in hands, like you said, but how could ties, let's say, be even strengthened also with respect to the industry?
Well, first of all, we have to come up with a clear picture of what we do on European level. And when we do something on European level, Iris Square is an example how we can actually approach an pressing issue. We need to have a connectivity initiative, no question about that, so that we are very efficient and when we find these topics. Second, we have to have ambitions in special topics. We need to make sure that we exactly know whether and how we approach low Earth orbit, how we approach Moon, and how we approach Mars. We have to have a clear picture. And as soon as we have a clear picture, this is actually the playbook for industry, because they have to fulfill these topics. And I have no doubt that the industry, especially in France and in Germany, is capable of more or less completing all these tasks we are asking them.
I'll come back to you for other questions later, but let's precisely hear the voice of the industry with Monsieur Alain Fauré. As a representative of the French space industry, could you give us some examples of successful past and present collaboration between France and Germany?
Yes, of course. First, it had been said, Airbus is a good example of successful collaboration between the two countries. This is valid for the commercial aircraft, but for sure this is valid as well for space. But we have a lot of collaboration between Airbus, OHB, Thales Alenia Space, and other also with the SME, small and medium enterprise, and I said by François, with a startup as well. Some example, I had a look on the launch plan this year, and it's obvious to find and very easy to find good example of collaboration. We launched in Feb 2025 defense satellite called CSO-3, and it's a French-German collaboration. And the ground network, for instance, is managed by CNES, and we have local station in Germany and in France. 2 months later, we have the same story with atomic clock for the ISS. And the atomic clock is the collaboration between France, Germany, and Switzerland, obviously for a watch. And in this summer, just to take a third example, we'll have a very important program for climate monitoring. And the first satellite will be launched. The name is METOP SG-A. The first satellite is integrated in France with a lot of instruments coming from Germany. And we'll have the opposite, second satellite, second family of satellite, managed and developed and integrated in Germany with some instruments coming from France. So with just this example, it demonstrates a lot of collaboration in the past and in the recent.
So you partly answered my next question. I was going to ask, let's address a more forward-looking perspective now. Could you share your vision looking maybe more towards the future?
Well, I think it has been said, we have an unique opportunity with what's happening in space to boost this collaboration between the two countries, when it's between the two countries, or in the frame of ESA. We are preparing the next ministerial for end of this year, and this will shape the future for the 3 years to come, plus with some impact with the European Union in 3 years. So yes, there are opportunities of collaboration for sure in climate monitoring with Copernicus and the follow-up of Copernicus. But as well in defense, there are pre-studies under the lead of OHB on early warning, just to quote an example. And I think in this field, it's a very good example of collaboration between the two countries where we prepare the field together. And after that, we can have as well a solution by the country, but with a good complementarity. And we have as well in the future other type of opportunity, but it's difficult to be exhaustive. And I hope that we will not be exhaustive to demonstrate the boost of this collaboration.
Thank you very much. I want to hear you now, Monsieur Marco Fuchs. Could you maybe, in echo to what Monsieur Fauré just said, could you briefly explain your country's position in the space sector?
Yes, of course. I mean, I think we all saw that things are changing in Germany in the space sector. In a way, Walter already explained. Of course, this new government has much more ambition than previous governments ever had. We have a Ministry of Space. We have, on the other hand, also very ambitious goals in military space. And this goes back to what we all feel, that the world has changed. I mean, obviously we have, since more than 3 years, the war in Ukraine. But what has fundamentally changed German attitude towards this is the recent months with the new American administration. This has fundamentally changed. And I don't believe that people in France, in Paris, can really appreciate what has changed in Germany in terms of feeling threatened. So we are going to propose 5% military GDP. I mean, this is a number. We used to have 1.5%. We were so happy under the previous Ampel coalition to go to 2% with all kinds of tricks. Now, we are the first country to follow the American goal of 5%. And you know why? Because we feel threatened. We have no nuclear protection. We have lost confidence in the Americans, and we are further east than France. So we are exposed. We feel exposed. And this will change fundamentally our approach in many ways. I mean, you saw that Germany has changed the constitution to allow indebtedness. I mean, I recall France has always, and others, asked the question, why can we not have Eurobonds? Why can we not jointly be more liberal on this? And Germany always refused it. Now, we're doing exactly the same than other European countries. That is, we are going into debt to protect our country. And we will protect our country. And again, I think that has to do with the perception of threat and the perception of being left alone with an uncertain protection from NATO and the United States. So this will change everything. And I think this is a good new chapter for cooperation, of course, with France. But it will be different. Germany, as Walter said, has in the past always been rather lukewarm to space investment, obviously. In terms of the size of the economy, in terms of the size of the capability, Germany was not willing to play on an eye level in terms of responsibility, in terms of investment with France. Mm-hmm. And this has been very sadly, let's say, complained about. But this is going to change. So I believe now we will go in a strong position with investment at the ESA ministerial. We will do programs that I hope, if you read the political statement, the coalition agreement will be increasing. We will invest in defense, yes, and maybe we will even as a country do the choice of doing it alone and not going European ways. Yes, of course, this might be in the beginning difficult to understand why Germany might be willing to prefer national solutions, but at least it's on the table. At least it's an overall military commitment. And again, my point is it has always to be understood in the current atmosphere of the perception of threat.
Yeah.
So again, my fundamental point is I think from a French perspective, you should appreciate that we are doing more. We are taking more responsibility. Mm-hmm. And again, I think those are big opportunities for Airbus, for OHB, for all the newcomers, for many companies. But in the future, Germany will be more acting independently, will be more willing to, I believe, to also approach leadership. And that's, I think, a good story. So it might rebalance things in terms of overall expenditure, in terms of overall exposure. But that's a new chapter that overall Europe will do more.
A brand new paradigm. Just in a couple of words, Monsieur Fuchs, Franco-German cooperation is seen as a real success model today. The Ariane 6 program is a prime example of successful collaboration, demonstrating how Europe can secure autonomous access to space. Therefore, according to you, briefly, which new initiatives could complement rather than fragment the existing Franco-German cooperation?
Well, there are many. I guess in ESA, the discussions are going on what to do together in ESA in the future. I hope that Germany will propose a significant exploration program coming up. I hope with German leadership and invitation to others to join. Of course, there's a lot of talk in Germany about the moon as a destination since a long time, and I think the moon is the right time. I mean, to strongly say, a European ambition for the moon. I think it's neglected in the United States currently. I believe it's neglected because the current administration, as Trump puts it, the sequel is always worse than the original. This is literally what he said against returning to the moon. So I think the moon is something that Germany will lead. There are many other programs, I think, where there can be a unified program. And in military, I'm sure we will find cooperation. The big difference is that France has a nuclear protection and we don't. So we have to do something on early warning missile detection, because we are unprotected. We feel unprotected because I'm not sure, at least I'm personally not sure, that the current American administration would come to help us emotionally. I'm not sure anymore. I was always sure about being protected by America. I'm personally not sure anymore. So I think we have to do something.
François Jacques and Walter Pelzer, both of you, another question. Another future challenge is, of course, the preservation of the biosphere, climate, and biodiversity. How do both the French and the German space agencies position themselves on this matter? Monsieur Jacques, maybe?
I think we've got at least two avenues we have to look at. The first one is probably to do our homework, in a sense. That is, if we want to preserve environment, if we want to protect biodiversity and so on, we have to work on our own activities, that is, to reduce consumption of energy, to find proper way to protect biodiversity. Clearly, in our case, we've got a launchpad in Guyana with CSG, where we are trying to apply the strictest possible commitments in terms of environment. That's the first avenue. Maybe that's not an easy one, but I think if we don't do it, some of the people will say, well, that's nice, you're doing research for protecting environment, but you're not doing it at home. The second point is obviously that the importance of Earth observation. In my past job, I had the opportunity to work in the French meteorological service, so Météo France, also in Ifremer. And so at that point, I realized the tremendous importance of space observation and what it can bring. For instance, we had at some point a look at what was the input, the valuable input of satellite for meteorological weather forecast, basically. And if you would remove some of the current satellites, for instance, the one sharing Yazi, and then you would lose in terms of quality of forecast maybe 2 or 3 days, which were gained very at some cost during the past decade. So it's very important. We have some very good examples, but I think Walter will dwell on that. We have some very good examples of working together in that field of Earth observation. I'll let you speak about Merlin and things of that kind, Walter. But anyway, we have with the oceanography satellite JASON, we've also what we do with the METOP already mentioned by Alain. We have some nice example. I think now what we have to think of is clearly that this implies a strong infrastructure, and this infrastructure should not be taken for granted. When we are looking at maybe that's something seen from a different perspective of what Mr. Fuchs said. That is, when we are looking at what is taking place in a state, we shouldn't think that, for instance, all the observation made in cooperation with NASA, with NOAA and so on, will be forever. For instance, will we have the data and so on? So we have to ensure that we have the proper infrastructure. And I think that's our responsibility clearly for the coming years, not only to improve, but also to secure the existing network.
Mr. Pelzer, do you want to add something else on Earth observation?
One topic maybe that we have one challenge ahead, or actually 2 challenges ahead. First, we will act differently than the US. We will keep our focus on Earth observation on the one hand side. On the other hand side, when we look at Copernicus, it's a purely civil infrastructure, and we need to start to use these data also for security topics. So it's important. And now we have to really balance the topics that we do not harm the Copernicus constellation due to security topics. So we have to balance, on the one hand side, investment and usage of this data for security topics by not harming the let's say, data we get from third parties, let's say this way. And this will be a tricky part for a first glance no-brainer.
So actually, you give me a jump to the other topic, the next topic, to both of you, Monsieur Jacques and Monsieur Pelzer, regarding security challenges, precisely. How can we further integrate maybe more security into European space, especially given the Russian threat?
Well, I think space has always been dual in a sense, both military and civil. That's always been the case. And when you look at the competition between the Soviet Union and the States, that was already something of that nature. Now, I think what we realized, and now we are much more aware, let's say for some months, is probably that we now face a major challenge. The case of Ukraine and Starlinks and so on reminded us that clearly there is an intertwined nature between the civil and military aspect of space. So we have to work in that direction. It means that we also have to find other ways of working in a dual manner, much more efficient, much more integrated, even if at the end of the day, it's clear that the MOD will want to have, let's say, their own capacity, their own responsibility to be able to make the decision and so on. But working on the technology, working on the sharing of infrastructure is absolutely key. And going back to what we discussed earlier about Earth observation, it's clear that what we have in mind at the European level, that is the Earth observation governmental system or service, is exactly a testimony of what Walter was saying. That is, we are clearly have to develop this new layer of service in terms of Earth observation, allowing each partner, that is both the Ministry of Defense and also the people interested in Earth observation, to take their part, to share what can be shared, and to be cautious about what is of the national responsibility, basically. But that's a major challenge of flagship for Europe in the coming let's say months, I would say. And in the discussion about the MFF, so the next multi-annual financial perspective for Europe, we have to take really that into account.
Monsieur Pelzer, do you want to add anything else on security challenges?
I guess François covered actually the most important topic in regard of Earth observation and actually the balance between security and civil aspects and how to manage both. Actually, this is an important topic. The other one, which is also clear, is the question of the connectivity initiative. And these are examples for missions. What is important for Europe, from my point of view, is that we have a process on a political level, that we identify gaps and demands we have in security topics, and that we acknowledge that we have a gap and put then actually missions into practice and fund them, that we fill the gap to actually increase our independence. And this is actually the first step we need to start. We have now, at least, especially as Marco Fuchs just mentioned, in Germany, a new view on this topic. But now we have to put it actually on a European level also, together with France, who are, from my point of view, ahead in this regard, in a perspective that we start a program, that we do not have a mission here, a constellation here, that we really have a way forward for 10, 15, 20 years, how we get actually Europe started on a different level.
So we'll open the questions to the floor in a second, but I have one last question for both Monsieur Fauré and Monsieur Fuchs. Let's revisit the topic of cooperation in climate change monitoring. What is your current position, both of you, as industrial representatives on that matter?
I think space is not only satellite and rocket. It's more than that. It's sovereignty with the defense, the dual use, the governmental or defense program, and sustainability. And sustainability, it's about climate monitoring. So it's a key target on this type of business. We mentioned Copernicus several times with the satellite and the solution already in orbit, and we need to continue to feed with the data, with the new generation of Copernicus. Is the reason why the ESA ministerial is key to prepare in the frame of the future MFF, I said previously. So we have this opportunity. We have, for instance, an important collaboration on Aeolus as well, which is a Franco-German type of initiative, where we have an instrument with several players from the two countries. So climate monitoring, yes, sustainability is a key target in space, even for industry.
Mr. Fuchs?
Thanks, Alain. This is collaboration. Thank you. No, I can only confirm, and I guess, as Alain said, climate and Earth observation is a very, very key field. This has not changed in Germany. The new government is pretty much on the same priority for that than the previous one, which was very much focused on that. Of course, we will see what new missions are coming. It's Copernicus, it's the weather missions, METOP, MTG, of course. And we need to not forget this with the new threats that we have. But the German space industry at large is very focused on that and supportive. And this is, by the way, I think the strongest success story for Europe in the last couple of years, what was built actually with Galileo and then with Copernicus. So we should see if we can continue this path jointly.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's turn to the audience and take any question. You might want to introduce yourself really briefly and ask your question. Stick the mic.
I might indeed. Peter de Selding, Space Intel reporter. I have the same question for François Jacques and Walter Peltzer. As you see the relations between Germany and France today, with 5 months to go before the ESA ministerial, and maybe 10 or 11 months to go before hard decisions have to be made about IRIS-2, would you say Germany and France are on the same page, that have the same approach and the same opinion about IRIS-2 and the new governmental Earth observation service that the Commission has persuaded ESA to put in the ESA ministerial? On those two programs, would you say Germany and France have different opinions or the same opinion?
I can try to start. Obviously, I'm not in the mind of all our ministers and so on. What I think is that there is a shared recognition on both sides, German and French, that is a major issue. That is, what we've seen in Ukraine and so on, the fact that we may have some secured connectivity and so on is something absolutely major. And I think IRIS² is a step forward. And that is certainly something we can share between both countries. Then, when you go to the implementation, there may be some nuance, there may be some things that we are not absolutely sharing, but I think what is core is that clearly Walter will confirm or not, but I think we share the importance of the program. We think that having that program in the frame of EU is a breakthrough, is certainly a breakthrough, paving the way for further cooperation in the field of space and for enhancing the place of EU in the field of space. And I think that gives us a sound basis, a good basis to work together, and I think that the fine detail we can work out, I think.
You asked whether Germany and France are on the same page in regard of preparation of the ESA Council. So first of all, the book is not written yet. Joseph is still working on programs, especially in regard of security. He has ambitions, and we said, okay, we will see whether he will come up with something which is of value add. Despite the question that there's still, let's say, programs up in the air, there is a difference between the ministerial 2022 and the ministerial 2025. Maybe we are not on the same page yet, but we are reading the same book. And this is the important thing. We are already reading the same book. I mentioned that Philippe Baptiste is right now on the way to Berlin to talk with Minister Baer about space. So to align actually our positions to find a common strategy. And this is a huge advantage that for the agencies that we know that our governments try to be aligned. That makes it much easier. We are not on the same, our evaluation of each mission is not the same, of course. You were smiling when we were talking about Iris Square just a second ago. To make it sure, I'm 100% positive that Europe needs a connectivity initiative. I can picture that's the way how we get it. We could do it a little bit different, but the question whether or not we need a connectivity initiative is out of question for us. So in this regard, we are on the same page and are going in the right direction. You're nodding, then it's fine for you.
Thank you. Another question in the audience. Are you raising your hand? No, you're not. Please, go ahead. They're all here. Another question? Yes, sir? Can you introduce yourself briefly?
Hello, I'm Victor Meyer from the Exploration Company, and Exploration Company is also a very nice example of a French and German collaboration. It's part of our DNA. I was wondering, like, space exploration brings big programs. It's about answering the questions of humanity, going to moon, going to Mars, deep space. Do you see much more, and this is related to you, Mr. Pelzer, and to you, Mr. Jacques, on the agency side, more ambitious projects that, because no country alone can do it alone, so we need to do this as Europeans. And how do you feel about this? Where do you see this exploration topic bringing us even more closer together? Thank you.
Actually, a few years ago, we came up with a so-called Severe Agreement, and part of it is also the return capsule, the cargo return capsule. You are very, very, let's say, engaged in. And one big topic, and I think France and Germany are really fighting for it, is that this severe agreement, which is on a political level, now will be put in practice by the ESA Council. So if we achieve that, that would be a huge milestone. It would be actually a complete change in how we do things in space in Europe. It's a stepwise approach, and so you don't see it on a daily basis, but it will change Europe in space in 10 years down the road. So from this point of view, yes, I think that we have very high ambitions. We are right now in a, let's say, watch and prepare situation due to the fact that the situation in US is different. We don't wait and see, we watch and prepare. So we do not jump to conclusions. It's very important that we do not jump to conclusions because there's still work in progress in US, but we prepare what if. This is important. So our ambitions in exploration are, as already stated also in the coalition agreement, are very high, on a very high level.
You want to add something?
Very few things to add to what Walter said. I fully support. Probably the most important issue we will have in the coming months is exactly what he mentioned about the states. That is, we have not to hurry to the conclusion. We do not know what is the end of the story, but at least we have to work on the plan B, because we do not know in what direction we are heading, and it's clear that what seems to be the case for the moment in the state is a huge blow to the program, but we already secure some, let's say, bricks, and you're part of that in the exploration program. That's an inspiring one, and we will have to see how we can to promote, let's say, the European ambition in reframed cooperation with our American friend.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have time for other questions, so go ahead and... Yes, sir.
Frédéric Castel, Radio Canada. Mr. Fuchs, you mentioned to have a European approach to a moon exploration, a moon program. Which idea would you have on that, and what would be a consistent program for Europe now that perhaps you want Artemis won't fit?
I guess there was no battery in that one. Of course, the big change is the uncertainty on Artemis. If you look at Artemis, the likelihood is that there will be one more mission, and then it will probably end. So the whole idea that was said before of cooperating with NASA, with America on lunar exploration seems to be shattered. Gateway seems to be very uncertain. So I guess that Europe should now build on the strengths that Europe had. There is the Argonaut, obviously, the lander, there is the Ariane 6, the launcher, and of course Europe could reach the moon. I mean, the first step in every lunar program is getting there and a safe landing. And that's obviously what we have to start with. We don't have to be sophisticated about predicting what type of science or other utilization we might do 20 years down the road, but we need to get to the moon because it seems that the Americans will not. It seems that Artemis is coming to an end before there is a return of humans on the moon, and it seems that the Americans will not have a program quickly that safeguards that. So I think as part of the Western world, we should just make sure that China is not the only one, or Asians are not the only one going to the moon. So in that respect, I think there's a window of opportunity for Europe to implement a lunar initiative. And again, I think this ministerial conference is a good opportunity to start that and to try to initiate a program. What exactly to do depends obviously on the level of ambition, but it will have to do with safe landing, and it will have to do with launching capability that gets us to the moon.
Mr. Pelzer?
Yeah, I would like to add one topic. Argonaut was actually, at the beginning, the precursor of Argonaut was actually not a mission part of Artemis. It was actually based on a discussion President Macron had with Chancellor Merkel somewhere in France at a summer residence, and they came up with the idea to have a robotic mission to the surface of the moon. And only within ESA, this idea of a European mission to the surface of the moon was moved to a part of Artemis. So we discuss within ESA now that we actually go back to the initial idea to have a European moon mission where we can do robotics missions and scientific mission on the surface of the moon.
Thank you. One last question, maybe? Yes, we have a gentleman in the middle of the room. Good afternoon.
Hi, Jeff Faust of Space News. As France and Germany get closer together in cooperation, how are you bringing the rest of Europe along? If you're reading from the same book, if not necessarily the same page, how are you ensuring that other European nations, ESA and EU members, are also in that same book?
Well, I'm not sure I have a clear answer to that, but I think that if we are working together closely, that's a good signal for the other countries. But it doesn't mean that we want some kind of leadership dictating the other member states of ESA or the other European countries what should be done. Then we have to share, we have to work together. And I think the fact that we would have been able to overcome some other differences, let's say it that mildly, I think is clearly a good signal to do the same for the other country. And I think the conviction we have that we should overcome those differences because we have to join force, because we have no other option in the current context, is certainly something we have also to bring to the other member states. And I think the major ambition we should have, be it in the field of launches, be it in the field of Earth observation or security and so on, those can be shared with the other countries. So I see more rather what we are doing at the German-French level as a signal to the other, rather than something where we have Germany and France deciding for everyone. And I think, well, that's at least my wish.
Yeah, from my point of view, it's very simple. First of all, we have to be convincing by content. And this is actually something which is kind of easy, because if France and Germany are aligned we are usually in Europe able to fulfill much bigger things than others. And so the other member states can also be part of bigger missions, more ambitious missions. And I feel last year the CNES and the German Space Agency was able to come up with a joint paper where we actually ruled out and solved more or less all issues which were on the table in space regard. And I knew that the other member states applauded that we were able to get aligned, because they know if we are united, then we can do much bigger things jointly. And this is the advantage of everybody.
Thank you so much. Is there another last question in this audience? No. If not, do you have one last message, maybe Mr. Fuchs, Mr. Fauré, to underline before we jump into the signature session with both Mr. Jacques and Mr. Pelzer?
No, I think the Franco-German collaboration was a big success, is a big success, and will continue to be a great success. So we need to have this momentum.
And maybe we could, yes, Mr. Fuchs, go ahead.
Yeah, I can just underline that. I think France has to continue to lead. We would not have a European space industry, we would not have an ESA, we would not have a meaningful European space program if France would have not been willing to lead. And this has to be the same. Even if Germany will now strengthen its role, but it will still be France being the #1 nation for many reasons, because you have French Guiana, you have Kourou, you have the nuclear program, and that is the commonality in launcher. You have the heritage in many ways. You have a much broader military space program than we. You mentioned CSO3 and others. And yes, there will be moments where Germany might dispute the leadership, and maybe Germany wants to also lead. This might be the case, yes. And there might be duplication. Yes, Germany might do something in military that could also be done on a European level, yes. But that has been done in a similar way by France in the past as well. France also decided to do certain things not within ESA, but nationally in security questions. And we will do the same, I suppose.
Go ahead.
Yeah. When we look a little bit, or put ourselves a little bit outside of the box, and we look at France and Germany, I think it would be a perfect match. Everybody would say, well, this is a perfect match. So France is on a political level a heavyweight. On a global scale, politically, is France a heavyweight. On a different level at Germany. Germany is the third biggest economy in the world, so we are doing something right in this regard as well. So if we join forces, I guess it's an advantage for both. So from this point of view, actually for somebody from the outside, this Franco-German axis is a no-brainer, and I hope that we will be able to put this into practice what everybody outside sees.
Monsieur Jacques, one last word, or?
No, I can concur with all what was said, but basically I think what we have to do first is to clearly understand each other and what the other one has in mind. As Marco Fuchs said, we have our interest. We can't dissimulate that. That's fair enough to say that at some point Germany wants to do things as France did things. But if we understand that, if we understand the underlying reasons and how it's working, then we can build on this transparency. And I think that is absolutely crucial for Europe tomorrow.
And maybe we could summarize this new French and German collaboration, like you said earlier, Mr. Pelzer, not wait and see, but watch and prepare. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for this being here with this session.